So Chris has
Yeah.
been on my channel a couple times now. I've had a game that he played with Natalie Zolti from the MGI tournament that was incredible. That game between him and Dr. Bing, that's our nickname for Dave Wiegand, as they're going to square tiles and get going. I feel like I need to have a pro Chris video on my channel. So maybe he's going to do something in this game that earns him a ticket to being broken down on the Wanderer 15 YouTube channel. And if not, as I mentioned yesterday, he has had some crazy wins against me, including bingoing out on me with a 10-letter word through GOR. He played allegorist to beat me. That could easily be a game for the channel. So Chris, a great, great player in his own right. No bonally. He has learned he cannot play bonally, so we will not see that in this game, and he should be good to go to play a fantastic game with Dave Wiegand going first. Let's see what he draws.
Yeah,
He's got a great shirt. Look at his shirt, Sam. Look at this Chris shirt. What is even going on here?
I mean, Chris definitely has his own style when it comes to fashion, and he is demonstrating that. He loves like My Little Pony. I don't know if that's like Brony. He's a Brony or something.
Yeah.
So I don't know if this is like a related shirt. So I don't know. I'll leave that to the fashionistas. But Dave is a nice rack to think about, because to nothing. I don't see the immediate. Oh well, like he has Zach. I didn't notice Zach. I guess that's a good play. He could also play Need. Well, he's going to go with Zach very quickly. I guess he could just play Need, Kneed. Yeah, the interesting thing about that, there
lots to E, yeah.
It slots the E for Z or Z-E. Oh, and what is Chris? Oh, feel.
I was wondering if he's going to try this. It's not a word. It's going to get challenged. So no, we are not going to get very far into the game without Chris going for the gusto. This is very plausible, and you can easily see this potentially being a word, right? Like, oh, this material is feelable or something like that. But Dave is going to challenge this 10 times out of 10. There's no way Dave will let this stay on the board, and off it comes.
Dave waiting 20 seconds to challenge for maximum psychological impact on Chris, to make it seem like this is a word he's just only has a little bit of doubt on, Yeah. I guess we could try to use feelable. Well, I shouldn't say that. He's made some interesting phonies in the last two games, but this is one. It's like, if you see this and you think it might be valid, I don't really fault him so much for trying. I mean, obviously you don't want to try phonies and Collins. Like you're very much incentivized to like not try them, but it might be one where you kind of see it immediately and you think, if you kind of feel like it's a word, then you might feel like, oh, I have to take the risk to score, 100 points right to start, or whatever, 90 something points, especially when you're playing Dave Wiegand, such a strong opponent. So I kind of get it. And, if this isn't valid, then what else is he going to be doing? He's going to be playing, I don't know, Leaf or whatever for 25 points.
Well, Befall would have been pretty nice.
Oh, okay. That's
so. Well,
okay. Never mind. Yeah,
there is that.
A lot better.
But you want to have the respect for your own game, right? If I'm Chris, I've played in a World Championship finals before. I am an excellent player that's, well capable of defeating Dave, but I also want to, like, if there's any chance that I could start the game off with a, 80 to 90 point bingo, that seems plausible and could easily be a word. I'm going to take it as Dave plays heh underneath there. This is kind of nice if Dave was thinking about what could he, what could Chris actually do on the Zek post-Zek board. He probably saw Befall and now realizes that this play leaves Chris with significantly fewer options than he had before, although that's not really true. He has Beflee now. So that's Still pretty good. Chris just going to play BEL, which is a slight point sacrifice to that. But yeah, Flea probably the star play just on the basis of scoring so many points. But at least it feels like Chris has not inadvertently given a spot back to Dave to play crooned, which is a 7-letter word he has on his rack right now.
Yeah, interesting sequence. The engine really seems to love if you plug in Chris's rack, since Dave knew Chris's rack, it seemed to really like just playing leaving that H off, and then keeping that CH, you're keeping dench for next turn, and then Biflee would have been much less powerful, of course. So a bit of a rush turn for Chris. If I think he might be. I guess I shouldn't speculate as to his mental state, but at least myself, when I make a big mistake on the stream and then make another mistake, I'd get frustrated. I think there's a chance of frustration, and it's maybe a little bit of a rush turn because Biflee is a really nice play, but Bell's fine, and
it's hard enough to see Biflee on your own rack, let alone on your opponent's rack too. And honestly, I do feel like the turns where we were talking about the blank potentially being the tile that causes you to sort of bleed the most time off of your clock, but really the actual situation that causes you to lose the most time is when your opponent plays a phony, and it's your job to try to make the best play given the tiles that you just saw, especially if it was a phony bingo and you see all 7 of their tiles. Those turns can go from simple to extremely complicated in a hurry. And I guess the best thing you could say about Dave playing Heh is that he was able to play it really fast and not burn a ton of time. Maybe there were ways to escape that a little bit more efficiently, but I can't really fault it. And Chris playing Bell sort of confirmed that he took the right tack here. But Chris is going to bomb his X here, Sam, and it's still going to be very close with Dave's weak draw.
Yeah, definitely. That's a good point. It's Dave is not going to score well on this next turn. And another good point, really. Het was a very practical play, and when your opponent plays a phony and exposes their rack, you're not playing Nigel Richards. Like, it's a chance they might not see every possibility. And Het, like you said, it was a very practical play, and playing it so quickly is it has worked out. And and Chris didn't see that very, very difficult, I would say, word of Beflea, Beflea. So. Dave now with, the overload of 5 vowels to 2 consonants, and I don't know what he's going to do here. He's got the O for okay, but what could he play there? Row? I mean, that seems really, nothing looks very palatable. I mean, this board is really with the C out there with codon, that right angle with Zek and Zell. There's not. I mean, box. You could hook him with a Y. There's that S. If you have a bingo with an S, that'd be great. You could score a lot with Zeks. Otherwise, there's not much going on this board.
Yeah, it's pretty brutal.
Chris does have one. I just look up and I see Chris's Olestra.
Yeah.
Estral.
He's sitting in great position, probably reasoning that there's almost no way Dave can find a block of his bingo hooking Zeks here. What could he even do? It would need to be very specific. If he doesn't have an O, this is completely inaccessible anyway. And even if he does, a lot of the plays that Dave will make forming okay are still going to allow all bingos with an S to fit, unless it's a word that doesn't pluralize. Not that many words fit that bill. So Chris is probably thinking to himself, I'm a huge favorite to bingo next turn, and my early attempt of feelable is going to be ancient history in this game. As for Dave, as you suggest, Sam, row is basically the best word that he can put on the board. It seems just barely worth playing. I do feel like exchanges are also very, very much in play. And if I did exchange, I wouldn't necessarily try to fixate that hard on keeping a really good bingo lead. I would probably try to exchange maybe more tiles than usual in order to try to get that all important S, or maybe a couple of the key hooks like a T or a Y or something that actually let me play productively on the board.
Yeah, I agree. Usually I'm more likely to kind of feel that people are exchanging too many tiles and should kind of keep more things to balance the rack. But I completely agree that in this case, trading down to like an ER or something to me looks good. I wouldn't trade all 7. It's just, you want to keep a little bit of a nucleus of, ER is useful generally.
That's what
But
I had in mind. I would consider ER here. That feels like a nice, you keep one vowel, one consonant, but you really want to try to max your chance of drawing an S or some of those other key tiles. So I'm agreeing with you on that.
Yep. So I'm not sure if maybe he's just deciding between an exchange or like row, or it's been suggested in the chat you could do Rona, although that just opens up a triple word, so and a double double. So I don't know that he'd. I mean, he knows Chris still has AEL, so he knows probably some sort of Bangui tiles. Yeah, I mean, a simulation seems to think row and trading down to like earn or EAR look about equivalent. I didn't plug in trading down to just ER, I don't think.
Yeah, let me see what it likes about that. So, and Dave's taking his time here. Look at the clocks, in fact, and Chris is going to, there we go. Oh, he exchanges down to just an E. I think that is probably a lot of his reasoning was that there really is no need to fixate on a really normally good bingo leave. You got to try to get some of that stuff, and Oestral is going to come down in a hurry, so Chris is going to lose very, very, very little time off of the clock, and Dave's replenishment draw contains basically none of what he wanted whatsoever, Sam. Ouch.
Yeah, that's like a bad draw. Yeah, I like that, Chris. I personally like to, it's like when your opponent takes like 5-6 minutes and then exchanges, like you should have your play ready to go. Because sometimes I find myself zoning out, and then it's like I still have to think for a couple. It's like, no, if they exchange, you should be prepared for that. It's been 5 minutes, so good for him for moving on. And maybe Dave has another hard decision and falls behind, and yeah, he's got really this kind of awkward set of letters, and I don't know what to do. I mean, maybe Gallia, like something like GALEA, sticks out to me as like a, just score a little bit, get rid of like your duplicates. But I doubt there's anything great on this board. It's not like there's a bunch of big openings. Astral is nice because it kind of doesn't really open up too much.
Yeah, very much so. It's hard to hook. It doesn't hook. It doesn't really give very good lanes back to Dave. So definitely a good choice by Chris, who also didn't draw great letters on his own. So we're going to see some slogging here, but I promise you all, there are some good tiles in the bag that eventually the players are going to draw, even after they work their way through all of this dreck. There's going to be some S's. There's going to be some blanks. Eventually, they're coming.
Yeah. Not sure what he's looking at here. But yeah, they'll slog their way through. They'll find good plays to get rid of their duplicates, and
it says a lot that the engine likes Gallier right here for 18 points, leaving CO. I feel like Dave has that lined up. He might opt to leave the extra E off in the odds of catching Chris without a hook to that word. And then maybe Dave will be able to play his E hook on a subsequent turn. That is what he's doing, which seems very reasonable. Also creates a little bit of a hook test, in fact, of do you also know that this word takes an S, and do you know that it does not take an L? There's a couple hook, tests available to Chris now. I think Chris is likely to know that stuff, but the only reason I mention it is that there's a very similar word. If you replace this G with a P, that is also a valid word that takes an E and L as hooks. So Galia taking an E and an S as hooks. So you could easily see a little bit of confusion between these words, whereas I really feel like Dave knows them pretty well. I wonder if Dave would ever try an L hook. I doubt it.
Oh, I mean, unless he needed it, like filing yesterday, but probably not. Yeah. That's probably what I mean, it's like, I said Gallia pretty quickly. I saw that play, and then I probably would have done what Dave did, which is spend 2 minutes looking around, seeing if there's something better, and then just playing it after you couldn't find anything better because there wasn't anything else available. Chris does have that Y for boxy, which is still, the board hasn't really opened up that much. So he could play like Yoni there, hooking with GI. That might be, at least AAI, which, could runs a risk of being, of having too many vowels next turn, but it's certainly worth it for 27 points. He doesn't have a ton of great options for using up more vowels, really. He'd have to sacrifice points like Ngaio. I don't know how to say that word, NGAIO, but that leaves a really bad AIY leave. So I think Yoni, the X is gone, so putting that O over the triple letter it's just not that risky because there's nothing that could hit you that hard there. And even if it did hit you hard, you're getting the triple word score on the bottom row back. So Yoni looks good.
Yeah,
looks as well as you can do.
this is a weird looking play. It's so weird because you are sort of actively not hitting any good bonus squares. So it feels weird that this would be the way to score the most points that you can get here. So I do feel like that's a tricky play to generate. But once you do figure it out, that actually gets you 27, as you suggest, there is not as much risk of opening this square with the X already on the board. And if Dave were to play in that spot, you will often get counterplay along the lower triple. A lot to recommend it. Only blemish is the 3 vowels, and there I believe Chris has now spotted it. You can see it lined up on the rack, which is very good play finding from him. And down it goes. Nice job by him to spot that one here, which I think is a little bit tricky, but as I think Sam and I are agreeing, that's got to be the play here.
Yeah, it's another kind of tightish. Well, I guess now Chris has a good sized lead now at this point. Dave, not through really any fault of Dave's. He's done everything right, I think. Or no major mistakes, certainly.
Yeah, the only quibble with Dave was we were talking a little bit in the chat with codon versus just con, right? Like there was some possibility of, you don't have an I on that turn. So playing con, giving up the icon hook feels a little weird, but playing codon instead did allow Chris to score way better if I could actually circle accurately to get his X bomb down. So maybe the tighter play would have worked out slightly better for Dave on that turn, which we didn't really mention because action was proceeding very quickly at that time. But yeah, that's a real hair splitter. And rarely do you see Dave make a mistake that rises to the level beyond a hair splitter. That's how accurate and good of a player he is. So tricky turn for him now where he can go a couple different directions, Sam. He probably knows the weird odd 6-letter word Malaic. He could play that right here for a good score, or he could just dump his O right here, which actually gives him decent chances of drawing into a bingo a couple different words with some of the key tiles available, such as Camellia or maybe Simelia with another I. Not sure where that latter one is actually playing necessarily, but could be reasonable to dump off an O if you feel like your bingo odds are pretty good. That leave of malice really does become a lot of stuff with consonants as well, with the E hook available for Galia.
Yeah, I think the problem is with that with that O fish, it's like, the computer likes it, but the problem is Chris is going to react to that. And, you know, if I see that, I'm blocking Gallier. I'm going to sacrifice a good amount to block the Gallier hook, and, row 14 to some extent, which, by the way, he doesn't, his bingos might not fit, or really. I mean, he doesn't have an S, so it might be tough for him to fit his bingos on row 14 or hooking anywhere but Gallier.
Yeah, I personally, for the reason you describe, I do maybe prefer Maleic here for Dave, even though he really needs a bingo and fishing his O would yield a lot of them more often. I feel like Chris will respond in ways that the computer simulation is not expecting after just a fish of one tile. It turns out, though, that Chris's rack is so weird right now. Oh, and there we go. We're going to see Mo is the play by Dave. So I wonder how much bingo percentage he gives up by tacking his M on with this play. Surely it's a little bit, but maybe this doesn't look quite as red alert to Chris to play defense afterwards. I'm not sure how I would read this if I'm Chris. I guess I still kind of read it as very threatening.
But it could be, I mean, not necessarily though. Like I do like this more than just dumping an O, just because you could have a range of things. I mean, you could just have, I mean, yeah, maybe it is kind of threatening, but maybe you have some sort of weird rack where you're trying to dump, you have a couple O's or something, and you don't have a great bingo lead, but an okay bingo lead. Maybe he didn't see Maleic. I mean, that's a hard word to see.
Very.
A 6-letter adjective, just weird. The EIC combination. So definitely a tough play. By the way, I do agree with that earlier point about Codon. He knew Chris's leave was leaf. And so, Codon did kind of open up some stuff for like a F going underneath, making of, but anyway, and Chris didn't have an I, didn't keep an I. But Chris, meanwhile, this is a clear spot for that Collins only word of Aya, A-I-A. And it looks like he's just going to plop it right under Gallia for, it's just 10 points, but he's keeping quite a good bingo leaf. He's very, very likely to bingo next turn. Although it's, again, tough to fit a bingo, he's probably going to have to make the blink an S. So maybe it's not going to be so easy to bingo unless he maybe finds an 8 into the C.
Yeah, the thing about Aya that I like is that it looks at first glance like, why would you do this, making a hook? But actually, that hook was already available with Gallia. You could put an S on this. You can put an S on this, so that doesn't change. But Aya blocks the E hook here, which is significantly more flexible. So this play has a good amount of defensive merit against bingos. There are going to be cases, though, where Dave now has an overlap that plays along here that he might not have normally. But remember, Dave's previous play was just Mo, M-O. That makes his odds of having good scoring tiles much lower than usual, or else he would have tried to play them on his previous turn. So I think the play of Aya for Chris does a lot of good things, and the downside risk of it is less than usual given the game scenario. And Dave responds by playing Aguila. I'm very interested. Why that over Agile, Sam?
Yeah, I don't know. It's showing off his vocabulary. I thought he was playing Agile for sure.
But just keeping CEEI instead of ACEI, which just feels like, why would you not keep that nice balanced combination? Maybe Dave just didn't think about it. I would always defer to him that he almost certainly has a reason for his choices. But then again, we're all human, and it could have just been an oversight. So I would reserve judgment until hearing from him what his reasoning was for that. Maybe his reasoning was, I don't want to put an E out in open space after Chris just played a short word that looks a little bit bingo prone. Maybe the A a little bit harder to land a bingo that goes all the way across the board. I don't think that's quite enough to get me to keep the slightly inferior leave, but maybe that could have been on his mind.
Yeah, the only thing I can think, and again, I'm kind of stretching for an explanation here, but um, is it is a little defense. It's more defensive in that way, and also Chris just played two A's, so you might suspect Chris has a third one, which he in fact did. And so, in that sense, I mean, if we look at Chris's leave of A, I, D blank, of course, it's going to combine much better with an open E than an open A. So it was more defensive, but Dave's losing in this game, so I would have, I think I probably would prefer. I would think slightly, but prefer to keep an E to keep an AE instead of double E's, especially because like there's not even that many A's to redraw, and there's a lot more E's. He easily could have drawn more E's. So anyway, Chris is playing Dolly. I haven't looked at how do you? I haven't looked at his play. How do you feel about this?
Seems reasonable. Either Delhi or Dolly in that spot. Oddly, 18 points apiece. Unless you want to burn the blank, which players at this level are not going to be doing unless you're getting a whole lot more points than Chris can. That looks like actually the highest score that he had available, which says a lot about how tricky the position was, but it is going to yield. I don't think this is an argument against Chris's play, but Dave is going to quickly play ejects for 58 points, leaving just an I to get very, very close on the scoreboard again. But look at Chris's draw, Sam. Finally, I guess we're going to see a bingo. Although, is it possible that that Chris should? It might be the case that unless Chris can play a really careful, not that open bingo, which may be difficult on this board. If you think about where are the bingos going to fit, they're going to fit here, which gives a triple back, and they're going to fit here, which gives a triple back. Chris might have incentive to just play get here and be very patient and wait for an opportunity to play a bingo that's not so dangerous. That would require crazy patience on his part, but it might actually be best.
That would be interesting, actually. I mean, I kind of like that. I mean, you're sacrificing he could score 75 points. So that's like a 55-point sacrifice, which is whopping, you could say. But yeah. I mean, there's also a chance, Dave, it's kind of a close game. Like maybe Dave kind of just like inadvertently opens up a triple or something. Maybe Dave's best play is like under Aya hooking, like parallel under Aya. Because it might be a little tough to score really well. I mean, what's Dave going to play? He'll play like where, awe and where or something next turn. I mean, okay, that doesn't even look good. Dave might be incentivized to open up the board basically at a certain point. So you could kind of play cat and mouse. I don't know. That does seem. Matthew's pointing out. Yeah, digest that's
the standard play is digests, which definitely looks very reasonable to play, and that would be my guess of what Chris will play and what almost any expert would play in this position. But I am tempted by the idea of playing it because with the two blanks, there is almost nothing that you can draw that's going to stop you from having bingo options on a subsequent turn. Like it's, the two of them together. But there is, again, we've talked about it a few times, Sam, there is a practical issue with that, which is that it's already hard enough to play with one blank. You might paint yourself into a corner where you have to make an extremely difficult find with two blanks. If you continue to keep them, it's a little bit like playing with fire. Playing them now while you have a chance to do so can sometimes you might regret not doing that. So I do feel like what Chris is very likely thinking is, man, I would love to play an 8-letter word off of this A. Amazingly, there isn't anything, but with two blanks, certainly in his situation, I would be looking pretty hard for a couple minutes for an 8-letter word starting with A, A, D, A, T, definitely some blank designated letter. It seems like there should be something there. In fact, there isn't. So it's going to take a couple minutes for Chris to work that through. And then by the time he does that, I'm pretty sure he's just going to slap down digests without thinking of anything too creative. And I would support him fully if he does that.
The engine seems to maybe like, I mean, just a very brief simulation, kind of like this, your idea of Git. So, I don't, but yeah, he's definitely looking from the A, like you said. I think that's the logical place to look. Interestingly, after digest, I mean, there's many bingos available, right? He could bingo making mows, lots of bingos hooking Aya. It's kind of interesting that it seems to be that the second most after digests, as you draw, was the next preferred bingo is Zigatai, DZIGGET, going down onto the AI. Oh, Matthew's just said this in the chat. Also, yeah, it's because it's so defensive. I mean, it's a wonderful word. There's a few different spellings. I believe it's an animal. It's like a boar or an ox or something. And
that's insane.
You can also spell it Chigatai, CHIGETAI, and a few other ways. So yeah, that would be. I mean, wow, that would be what a beautiful play, and well, very defensive.
Hey, Chris Lipe, you want to get on YouTube? You want to get on the Will Anderson YouTube channel as the protagonist? There's what you got one way of doing it right now, and there it is. Zigatai, DZIGGETAI. That would do it. I will guarantee that I will make a Chris Lipe video if he plays that right now. Is that likely to happen? Not very. It's being pointed out in the chat, if Chris isn't careful with where he puts the D tile on his rack, he could give Dave Woundier as a response. So for an example, if he were to play something here, slotting the D out in space, Dave would get a miraculous counter bingo that would be like manna from heaven for him. But yeah, I do feel like, the upside of not bingoing now is that the board is terrible, right? So when you bingo here, yeah, you get a lot more points, 50 more points, but you are increasing Dave's score by a lot, much of the time. Whereas the board, after just playing something like Git, is so poor, it's very, very difficult for Dave to even have a theoretical good scoring play anywhere. And then the ideal, if you're Chris, is you then bingo off of this A in a way that gives no counterplay back to Dave. That would be your ideal outcome after not bingoing right now. And oftentimes it's going to work out pretty nicely for you to do that. So again, though, that would take pretty unreal patience and planning, I guess. I think, as I've said, most of us, Sam, I'm sure you included, would be playing digests here without too much of a qualm.
Yeah, it's also very, I think, like, for me, kind of psychologically, you just kind of feel ridiculous, like sacrificing, like, to sacrifice 50 points on a play. It's like, unless you're like really confident, but sometimes very unorthodox looking plays can be correct. And I really like Git the more you look at it. I mean, digest is fine. Like, it's fine. You're going up by a bingo. It doesn't open up anything massive. I mean, it opens up two triple words, but is actually not so bad for you because probably you can hit one of them. No, yeah, the problem. So Doug Ives, and he's going to get Dave's like, yeah.
Wow.
This is like a, did someone say in the chat, it's like mana from heaven or something? Dave's seeing that D
I just
is
said
like,
that. I just said that.
Oh, you say this? Yes, that's exactly what it is. It's like, yeah, mana from heaven is D. So it's going to come down instantly.
Yeah, Dave.
How many minutes has he had to stare at this rack?
Oh my God, that's crazy. After all that, Dave is probably like, oh my gosh, this is fantastic. Look at this. Amazing. The D out in space. Ouch.
Chris
crazy.
Grimaces as he sees it go down. Especially
I'd be grimacing.
And all of a sudden it's Dave who's actually going to score more out of this exchange. It's tough. I mean, maybe he didn't see digests. I mean, he had two blanks. There's a lot of possibilities.
For sure.
Just because, you know, you're looking at so many different things. Like, just you might not think to make both blanks S's, and I don't know. So yeah, it's not like Dugites is like okay. It's just, sometimes it can give back bigger bingos. Maybe he preferred this to digests. I guess it
Yeah,
did score more.
I just feel like, yeah, I mean, the digest gives back the S at the base of the board, which isn't that
Hmm.
bad because a lot of the good tiles like the Z and the J are already used. And it gives back sevens, right? But a lot of those sevens, maybe some of them have an S in them. All of the S words are very likely to play with Ayas already, whereas Dugites gives you the D, the U, the G, and the I, all of which are either modest to good bingo tiles to play through. So you're just getting a lot of the same sevens will still play and way more eights. So I do feel like the immediate response after Dugites is going to be worse. But as you said, Sam, finding all of your options with two blanks is very, very difficult to do, and it's very difficult to say, oh, it was a huge mistake by Chris. He could easily be benefiting from that choice in certain scenarios. So, like, what if Dave has a bingo ending in S and he plays something here, and then Chris draws a big play through the D he just opened? That can definitely happen some of the time. So, this was a worst case scenario for sure, of having a massive, not just bingo, but a bingo with WU in it, Sam. Insane.
Yeah, talk about rescuing the rack. I mean, imagine, if he had played Git, what was Dave gonna do? I mean, he had like very little good option. And I mean, honestly, he kind of kind of to your point with the two blanks, it's so hard with the blank, and especially two blanks, it just costs you so much time. And I think he's kind of, it's hard to say rushed this turn because he saved some turn, so he's preserved some time with Jiff, but he had better plays. Like he had Fuggy and Puggy, or even just Figgy through that G and Dugites, which I think would, you know, have kept a better leave. And then, he kept the U and the Y and the P, and they also would have scored more, or at least as much, if not more. So he's gonna have to deal with some. I mean, he drew really badly. He drew like IIU, but meanwhile, Dave, as we get low on time on both sides, is dealing with consonants.
Yeah, just the
Do you
one
see? What do you see
vowel.
for him?
This is tough. I mean, after Woundier, he's probably feeling great to still be in this game. He's been trailing by seemingly a bingo or more for most of the game. Now, instead of a rack that could help him really keep pace, he's drawn another difficult one where his options really revolve around, is he willing to use up his vowel here, or is he going to try his best to keep it at all costs? Something like twin seems extremely uninspiring. 14 points, but it leaves AMRT. Maybe that's good enough to do. He's going to play Ween instead. I wonder. Yeah, Ween versus Where is an interesting choice between the N or the R to play there. I don't really have that
I was just
strong of
gonna
a.
say there's a bunch of R's in the bag, so and we see that he's drawn.
Yeah.
There were two N's in the bag, but then there were three R's in the bag, so there's a lot of unseen of both of them, and he's drawn another R, which is probably gonna slightly slow him down. Yeah, I don't think no E. Chris isn't going to be throwing an E open to Tremor.
So you're thinking maybe swapping that N out here for an R might have worked out better with all these R's to come in the pool. That's maybe that, again, this is like that hair splitter that we're talking about. If Dave is making mistakes at all, it's very likely to be these type of tiny nuances. But yeah, this is, look at the score of this game and look at Chris's tiles, look at Dave's tiles. I have no clue right now who has the upper hand here, because Chris is about to go up by whatever he scores, or he's about to exchange and get the first crack at the S's and things like that, which there he is. He's going to exchange all but just an I, which normally you would exchange that I, but he has a very low chance of it being duplicated. So that might make some sense. Maybe you keep a consonant there, but Chris is looking at a very imbalanced pool. That's probably why he did that. 7 vowels to 18 consonants. He knows the consonants are coming. So actually, as I think about it, Sam, that
Oh,
looks pretty good.
yeah, I think that was a great play. I think that was, very well. Actually, I guess I'm not sure what he had like on the board. So I think of the exchanges, that was smart to just keep an eye because of the pool, as you've just explained. I mean, I guess he could have tried to muddle. I don't know. I always try to kind of muddle through as much as I can, like unless it's like a
It
horrible
looks like
situation.
I mean, Yup was basically the best he had, which looks a little bit crazy to
Oh,
do
he would have
for
gotten
a
crushed.
couple reasons, right? Like it's crazy to do not just to play through the P, but underlaps here are devastating a lot of the time. So Yup, if Yup is the best play that you can put on the board, exchanging looks pretty good by comparison. So I think it makes sense, and I like the idea of exchanging, leaving just a vowel. Look what he drew. He drew exactly the consonants he expected, and fortunately, a U to pair with the Q. So Chris is now in decent shape as Dave plays Merit through the I. That seems decent from a standpoint of points and leave. There isn't actually that much any better, but I worry a little bit about the vowel situation. And oh my God, look at that. Crazy, Sam. Huge swing.
Well, that was what he was hoping for. I mean, he drew SQU to his eye, so that's like it was kind of the best. It was literally the best thing he could have drawn. I mean, it's probably even, I guess, some sort of huge bingo, but it's almost better than a bingo because most bingos would like open things up and wouldn't even score that much. So now he's like a massive favorite. So it's
Wow.
worked out perfectly. Yeah, his exchange. I would have said, "Oh, I want to score my 10 points and keep some crappy leaf." But maybe he was right to just exchange and try to go for, try to flip his chances.
Yeah, you know what's crazy though is with so few vowels in the bag, Chris has drawn none of them, depending on what you think about the Y. All of this stuff, the E's, the I's, and the U's, are actually still in the bag, as is the last S. So if Dave is able to do something, like if he plays his normal play, which feels kind of uninspiring, of Vapor here, what if he
Hmm.
draws the S and a bunch of vowels and threatens something here, and Chris basically has nothing to do about it? Even better, what if he threatens something here that doesn't give a triple as easily back? There definitely are very practical chances for Dave here. Maybe he would want to try to keep a vowel. I'm not really sure what he's supposed to play that accomplishes that and also scores a reasonable number of points. Like just playing VOR here feels not ideal. What's he doing here?
Nope.
Trop. Oh, wow. Okay, interesting. Keeping the V. At least he keeps the A along with it, but I didn't think about that one as an option, Sam.
Uh, yeah. I mean, he is setting up another line for his S. So now if he draws a bingo ending in S, well, there's the S. He's guaranteed that it will fit on the board, right? Because he can play with ohms and he can play with ayas. But yeah, that's the credit for this play, or its merit. But the problem, yeah, I think vapor, which kind of in a normally doesn't look very good, vapor, because it kind of looks like you're blocking essentially. But I think vapor would have. Oh wow, Chris has dumped just his. Why
Just
didn't
the
he?
Y. Yeah, just the Y by itself
Oh,
for 25. I
I
mean,
guess.
does he even have anything that lets him do much more? I guess he could have played something like BOEP, which at least gets one more tile off the rack. I just want to point out that through some providence, unexplainable providence, Dave is potentially on the verge of drawing UUV or UVV against Chris again to win the game. He is very close to Vesuvian, the word that he played originally. If that happened again, I would. I don't know what I would do. That would be pretty insane.
Yeah, I kind of think vapor would have been just fine. I mean, you would have, because you score more and you keep a lot better. You keep RT, and now we see he's having trouble kind of, he has the U and the V. Well, Gov, that's a good play. So that looks like a good play. He's getting rid of his U and his V. And now Dave's going to have a very good chance to win this game, depending on, there's still two E's in the back and an I. So, and a V. So he could easily draw Ravines or something, or
Yeah.
Sonari.
He's got very realistic
Or
chances
Rainius.
here.
Sonari will fit with Rainius too.
Yeah,
so,
for sure. So
he just needs to dodge VI. And I guess, just VI. Is that?
We'll just see.
Yeah.
Oh my God, you manifested it.
Yeah.
Oh no. Crazy. So this is very agonizing though for Chris, because if he doesn't empty the bag, it actually gives Dave a chance to fish his V somewhere if he can. There may not be a place that allows him to play it, crazily enough. Dave may be unable to just play the V by itself, which would definitely be what's called for here in his scenario. So imagine if Chris, with 2 tiles in the bag, what if he says, well, I don't want to empty the bag, and plays off 1 tile? That could potentially allow Dave to get rid of this V and draw into the unblockable bingos that you describe. Although maybe they are blockable somehow with a play here that would potentially block Rainiest and Scenarii. So even that might not get the job done. But first things first, I don't even know if Dave can dump his his V, I should say, by itself to enable any of that to take place. So this is brutal. Not a lot of time on the clocks either, Sam, to work out what is a very tricky pre-end game, as so many are.
Well, yeah, for sure. It's always very difficult when you're under 4 minutes. You want to have, you were talking yesterday about Nigel, like clockwork, having his 10 minutes for this pre-end game. But I think, what what he wants to realize is that normally you want to not empty the bag. But the reason you don't want to empty the bag is because when your opponent bingos, then you get to score enough to overtake them in the end game. In this case, like you said, it didn't matter. Let's say Dave has a bingo right here. He's going to win. The score, Chris is very unlikely, I think, to really score enough to make up for it. And Dave's still going to go out first. If we imagine David drawn into a bingo right now, if he had Scenarii down with Gubs or Ravines coming across with Ohms. So now, there basically wasn't any big point to doing a play like buy, dropping 1 letter, although he's drawn plunder, it doesn't fit anywhere. But now Dave, you've just kind of given Dave one last opportunity that he wouldn't have had. So if Dave doesn't have a bingo.
So the last tile in the bag is an E. So if Dave fishes an I somewhere that allows him to play Ravines in 2 spots, I'm not sure where that is.
I guess Chris did block IOs. That is one thing that play did. So yeah, Chris, that's going to make a huge difference, because he can't just fish the V. The V would be, he could consider, right? He can't consider, is there anywhere to just drop a V?
I don't believe so. At least I looked at it before and there was no spot for the V, which is agonizing. But yeah, fishing. Oh, wow. Look at this place to fish the I. That's kind of fun. You could play off me. That's pretty crazy. Dave, with only 20 seconds on his clock, he can't go that far over. Unfortunately, I just don't see where he's going to bingo in the second spot. No. Right? If he plays an I... All right, he's going to play Invar, almost maybe acknowledging that if I just fish an I, it's not going to play my play of Ravines or Avenires. It's not going to play in 2 spots, but maybe there was some cool idea that he had. Any sharp folks out there in the chat want to try to identify one. Yeah, what are you supposed to do to try to steal that one?
I'm a little surprised he didn't. If you like this, probably Invar is probably technically the best or close to the best play, because essentially, it's being pointed out in the chat, like technically he didn't have any winning chances, like theoretically, or academically you could say, if you're playing against an engine. But I am a little surprised he didn't just fish an eye somewhere because, Chris is like 2.5 minutes in his clock. Maybe he like screws up. Maybe he mistracked. I mean, that's what I would do. I would just say, hey, you want to beat me? Then if I draw ravines, you have to block it. You have to make sure you have your tracking on right, and play pep or whatever.
And don't play bonally.
Yeah, so exactly. You give your opponent a chance to mess up. You make your opponent earn the win essentially. So he's kind of acknowledged the loss, and probably it ended up, being good for his spread. You could really, but it's probably the best spread play. But it is, and sometimes you do want to do that. In this case, I would have said, hey, there were like different spots on the board, right? There was a spot to start a bingo with an S with Gov, and then end the bingo with an S with Ohms. He kind of, gave up basically with Invar. I think acknowledged that he was lost, and then Chris has pulled out a victory.
Yeah, that's a classic one where with the time so low, and this was definitely an extremely complicated game. It became that way for Dave. So many tricky draws and tricky moves early on. No bingos available for a lot of those early moves. And even though Dave did get that ray of hope from Woundier, he still followed that up with a bunch of racks that were extremely difficult to navigate. So I am just curious if there's like any play that wins at all. But as you said, Sam, you might as well, even if there is no play that gives you a sort of ironclad winning chance at the end, why not fish the eye and have some fun and allow him to make a mistake? But this definitely works out better on spread. And with Dave having such a good record, keeping your tiebreaker in order is very worthwhile. So another very interesting game. We were blessed with a whole bunch of them so far, very few blowouts. And this one, thanks to some theatrics in the mid game, was no exception. So, man, it's been a lot of fun, Sam. And let's see. So this win for Chris is definitely a big one for him. That's going to pop him up to 7-3 and drop Dave to 7-3. But David Whitley and Josh Castellano, who we saw play earlier this morning, are either going to be at 7-2 or better. So those are the four players right now at the top of the standings in the Collins division, with a whole slew of grandmaster level players behind them. It's always scary to me, Sam, when you look over these crazy divisions and you see incredibly strong players towards the bottom of the standings. It gives me a little bit of the shudders, thinking, how bad are these players drawing? How good is this field if, player X or Y is towards the bottom of the standings?